This is Leadership Beyond, your community of conversation. Today, we welcome Marika Messager.
I really was amazed how much ground we covered and how clearly integrated all of her different practices are so that we can become better human beings, create better organizations, and a better world.
Yes, I appreciate how Marika blends the critical and practical leadership techniques with spiritual and emotional awakening, because both are critical and both are needed. Welcome, Marika.
Good afternoon, Marika. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Adrienne. I'm very happy to be with you today.
Yes, hello. Thank you for joining our podcast. I'm so excited to dig in and to learn more about you, and for our listeners to learn more about you and all the wonderful, I feel the positive energy that comes from your presence. And so I can't wait to just capture some of that for our listeners. So if you would please share just a bit about your background, and most importantly, just what was the path that got you to this study and this gift you're giving the world of conscious leadership?
Sure. So there are many ways I can tell that story, but let's see what I come up with tonight. I would say that the root cause and the kind of birthplace of that calling of mine is being exposed to unhealthy, distorted, and toxic behaviors, both in my personal, social, and professional lives, from a very, very early age. And in my own process of trying to have a happy and healthy life, really getting to understand, what are those unhealthy behaviors? Why is it that some people do have them? And especially when it's people that, that you love. And really understanding what's the root cause of those patterns. Where do they come from? Is it possible to change them? What is it that I have inherited? What are, in which ways that toxicity shows within me? What do I need to change within myself in order to become a healthy human, a healthy leader? But also, what is it that in me changing the way I show up, I have some power to, change the dynamic of the relationships or not? So that's how it started. And so, I'm going to be 48 in a few months, and I started my personal journey at 28. So it's been 20 years of, working on myself and understanding, unpeeling all those layers. And then, I've also had 14 years as a senior executive in the financial industry, so on a trading floor. So I started as an equity analyst and an equity sales, and by the age of 34, I was head of equities for Europe and Middle East for a French bank. So I was managing 40 people, mostly men, mostly white, mostly older than me. And, trading floor is a very specific environment where a lot of unhealthy behaviors are amplified. So there was also a lot of study there on, understanding what's there, understanding the system that amplifies the behaviors, and what can we do to change them again. So that's how it all started. So I really studied consciousness. I've been researching consciousness. I qualify myself as a consciousness researcher for 20 years. And 10 years ago, I left my career in finance. My company was going through restructuring, and my job was going to disappear. And my job told me, Marika, you're doing an amazing job, and we really appreciate you, but your job is dead at the end of the year. Would you like to be global head of research? Which was a very good job. And I said, no, actually, I'm dying to explore more of what really it means to be a human being and a healthy functioning, healthy human being that lives their full potential. So I gave myself 2 years to study more, to train in the practices that I thought were relevant in my own transformation and for what I wanted to do. So I trained as an integral coach with a school that's based in California called New Ventures West. I also trained as a yoga teacher, a mindfulness teacher, a clinical hypnotherapist, because I'm fascinated, with neuroscience. And I also have been initiated in 2 lineages of medicine women in Brazil and Mexico. And I came back from that with a clear understanding that, yes, the work that we can do on us as individuals is crucial, but what does it mean when it comes to leadership? And I really understood throughout all my career that we needed a new paradigm of leadership based on different values, and values of collaboration, of co-creation, of understanding, of inclusion, acceptance, compassion. And since then, I've really I was one of the pioneers in conscious leadership, which is now becoming more and more a thing. But I can tell you, 10 years ago, it was not. And really unpacking what it means to be a conscious leaders, and how do we create conscious leaders one at a time.
So
So
can
I've
you
coached. Yeah.
give us a little,
Sure.
there's a lot there, and there's a lot of questions around every dimension that you mentioned, but let's start with the baseline of describing conscious leadership. What is it? And what is it?
Yeah.
You said a new paradigm for leadership. So I'm thinking the old paradigm is command and control kind of leadership, but I don't have that assumption.
Definitely.
But really,
Yeah. So and again, there are many ways to define it depending on the dimension that you talk about. And for me, the highest dimension is that I see conscious leadership as a technology, the technology of consciousness, and it's a technology to future shape ourselves, the organization, the world, the collective. So I'm big on systemic change. But if we go one layer down, I define conscious leadership as 3 types of leadership. The first one being self-leadership. So acting as an example, knowing the self, knowing how we function best, how we function the worst, and making that change. Either we accept what we don't like, or we change it. So there is a huge dimension of self in that involves emotional intelligence, intuitive intelligence, systemic intelligence. Then the other dimension is thought leadership. So, having mastery over something, which can be considered as a level of art in a way. And so thought leaders are highly educated in one domain, and they're passionate, they are driven, they want to share their message, they want to inspire others, they are able to take people to a vision or a direction, and they put that at the service of a cause, an organization, everything that is going to make a difference. And the third dimension is team leadership, which is what most people associate with leadership, but for me, it's only one dimension. And so this is really, managing other people so that together we execute our vision the best way possible, which of course involves healthy communication, and also, very importantly, supporting the people that we manage to honor their own potential, which means that if we are not a good self-leader, how are we going to be able to mentor and inspire the people that we manage to be self-leader, right? And to lead themselves. So
we can't wake
this is what
others
it
if
is.
we're sound asleep, and we can't tell others to become more conscious if we're not. So that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think leadership is really about embodiment, incarnation. So we need to show what conscious leadership is, and we need to walk the talk.
Yeah. You mentioned that you had done a lot of research. What were some of the key findings as you were kind of digging in? I mean, you went from this world of just this very strict, the finance world, fast paced on those floors, to this whole journey, and you dug deep into the hearts and minds of people. What did you find there?
Oh, so much. I think really the bottom line is I found acceptance and compassion for myself and for every human being, with the understanding that we live in a system that is distorted on its own. It's a toxic system, it's based on, as you said, a control, command, power fights, And you know, the patriarchy is involved in that system, and so we have all that, you know, that system lives within us, each and every one of us. And it's really about, you know, seeing that, and the role and the responsibility of each individual is to take that into consideration, and therefore, you know, work within ourselves to remove the toxicity that we have. But also that comes with, you know, the understanding and the acceptance that it's within others as well, and it's also part of the program that they have received. So, you know, it's like we are in a separation mindset, and how do we come into, you know, an interconnectedness or union or collaboration mindset through that removal of that system within us that is distorted.
Yeah.
Another big takeaway is that, you know, when I say distorted, I mean, the vocabulary is quite large. You know, we can say unhealthy, distorted, toxic, narcissist. And so there is a spectrum, right? And everybody evolves in different places on that spectrum. And really, one of the key findings is that you don't have so many differences. Like, you know, there are some similar patterns that are going to show and tell where you are on the spectrum and where it comes from. The root causes are quite similar, and then how we respond to that and the defense mechanism that we are going to use are just going to place us on the spectrum. And some people who are very far on the narcissistic spectrum are people who are not going to be willing to change.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, was power, right? Like, we're so kind of programmed, like you said, it's this systemic. What was kept coming up for me as you were talking through that was power, and how do we use power? And power can be used for good and for not so good, right?
Yeah.
And if we can't discern that, is there help for us, right? Say more.
For sure. Yeah. And you know, for me, that's the beauty of consciousness, because consciousness changes the dynamics of power, because it brings everything to the conscious mind. So if we have in our relationship an unhealthy behavior, but we bring it to light, we bring it to consciousness, then we have a choice. Am I going to continue with that unhealthy behavior, or am I going to change it? But it's going to be conscious, right? So we can't, if we continue in a distorted behavior and, you know, I express a need and you keep denying it and you keep hurting me, you're doing that on purpose. So it's a different conversation, which is why I always link consciousness and leadership, because consciousness is that place of truth, and leadership is that place of doing something about it.
And I know that meditation is a big part of your work. And as I listen to you, I notice a movement from the toxicity is out there. In other words, it's these bankers, it's out there. And then you want to run away and not look at yourself. And so recognizing that in part, choice is not real until we see something is there. The minute we see it's there, we can make new choices. But if we aren't aware, then we're reactive, and we're going to react not necessarily by choice, but by automation. That's, like, as you said, programmed in. So really.
And exactly. And another way to define consciousness is it's that pause, that space that we can create between what is happening to us and how we respond to it. So if we react, we are operating on autopilot and we are unconscious. If we take that space to really assess ourselves, the situation, others, then we can respond. And that's a conscious choice.
And we can continue, if we didn't pick the right response, to adjust if we stay awake to it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's growth by intention.
Exactly.
So you mentioned an environment you were in, that high-paced, toxic environment, and now I'm broadening it to the business culture. And you're European and we're North American, but the similarity of there are so many more things coming at leaders today than ever before. And so the hyper tension to react to all these things is accelerated. How do you get attention to the people that are already spinning out of control, who may not even need to know that they have to become more conscious. They may not even know they're unconscious.
Right.
So it's really about getting people to recognize that spinning out of control is a reactive state. So how do you
the thing
break the
is, you know,
cycles?
we live in a VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? And therefore, it's becoming more and more difficult to function in what I call the unconscious, the old paradigm of unconsciousness, because we are being asked to make decisions all the time. We have to be agile, we have to pivot, we have to redirect. But also, you know, we have to I mean, we are constantly distracted. You know, our mental health is challenged. Our emotional health is challenged as well, because, you know, our mental health is not great. So, you know, everyone really is suffering. Everyone is finding it harder and harder to function. And even in organizations, you know, the data are just obvious. You know, we have 80% of employees that are disengaged. We have only 20% of employees that feel connected to the company's higher vision. We have 72% of high knowledge workers who experience burnout in the last 12 months. So clearly, you know, the way we used to work at least is challenged, or, you know, I mean, I would say it's not working anymore. So people don't really have a choice but to question themselves, you know, and the pandemic has changed everything. Everybody is now working remote, and then it's creating more challenges to create cohesions within teams. So every organization is faced with those questions about, you know, how do I create more collaboration? How do I adjust to this new world? And what's the path forward, in a way? So people are you know, questioning themselves. And then I see three types of leaders, really. The first one is the ones who get it. You know, they've been doing the self-work, they are conscious, and they know that that's the path forward, and they role model that, and they want to embody that and share that, and have a conscious culture. Then we have the people in the middle who are a bit gray. You know, they're like, okay, the old is maybe not working. What's new? Do I trust the new? Do I want to go in the direction of the new? So, you know, these people, I always say, we have to show them, we have to demonstrate conscious leadership so that they see what it's like, and they see that, yes, it creates better environment, but also better performance. And then we have the one at the bottom that don't want to change, and they are holding back to the old system, and they have their own reasons.
So that's really good news. So all of that pain that we've been experiencing, what you're saying is it causes people, they may not have the answer, but they know what we were doing is no longer working. And so that's how you get their attention, sort of like, how's that working for you? Not well. And they can at least be open to a new approach. And I think it's true. Some people are just going to keep doing what they're doing. We have 4,000 years of human history to know that's true. But if enough people say, we can create something new, something beautiful unfolds. I love that.
Mm-hmm. The power of numbers, I think. I think there's a growing sense of unrest.
Yeah.
Right?
Dis-ease.
Yeah, dis-ease for sure. Yeah, dis-ease.
Dis-ease.
Dis-ease. Yeah. And we're getting now to a point where we can't ignore it. We can't just keep applying the same techniques because it's not helping any longer, right? So that forces okay, I guess we do need to do something differently, because where we are doesn't feel good anymore. And maybe it never did feel good. I don't know, you know, like I'm you know, so, I mean, like toxic environments, that's not new. but we're getting less willing to stay collectively as a people, right? As a human race. I think we're starting to now finally get less willing to stay. It's no longer the older generation saying, I'll stay there until it's my time to retire. Fortunately, some people would argue with me, we don't have pensions anymore, right? Because pensions kept people at jobs that maybe were not suited for them, but you were so dependent on what you got after 40 years.
Dysfunctional organizations had codependent relationships with their workers. And that used to be able to last for 30 years. And that's one of the good things about VUCA is it's not going to last. You don't get a watch at the end of it anymore. And the pension isn't realistic. So we have to say, if we're not creating something meaningful for both the workers and the organization, we have to part ways. So let's either create something. So another thing,
but you know that, yeah. No, I would say that that place of dis-ease, is a gift in a way, because if we look at the technology behind transformation, the cost of staying needs to be it's like it needs to be superior to the pain of changing, right? For people to really be willing to have the courage to change. And this is really when things shift, when you're like, okay, it's so unbearable, intolerable the way it is right now that I need to do something about it. Right. And I think this is the place where we are collectively, which is great.
Well, I think we should transition to some of the ways you help people that are aware they need to change, but they need help. And we all
those
need
people
help.
in the middle.
The middle people. And there's one thing that I noticed when I looked at your offerings, and it's not really as much about the money as the time. The mentorship program, is it 3 years?
Yeah.
But it's just this idea, you don't have a magic Marika wand. I come and I give you some money, you wave it, and now I'm conscious leader.
It's work.
It's a commitment to say, we're going to establish a new practice and you get supported. Tell us more about how you support leaders in their development.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comment, because in self-work there is the word work, right? So we have to put in the work, and and I never say I have a magic wand, because that for me is like having a tablet when you have a headache, but not looking at why you have a headache, right? So it requires deep transformation. So over the last 10 years, I've mentored 300 leaders and 5 organizations, and in that whole process, I realized that there is a lot that we are not being taught at school, at university, or whatever, higher level education. And this is emotional intelligence, this is intuitive intelligence, this is self-awareness, systemic intelligence. And so I started teaching that. And very soon I realized that I was going to end up teaching that over and over again if I was not going to automate and systemize. And so I went to the States a lot for 5 years to learn about the coaching industry and, how to deliver high caliber content and trainings. And I started to develop 5 programs. So the Academy for Conscious Leaders is our kind of, a key program. And as you said, this is 3 years where we start with self-awareness and emotional intelligence, year 1. Year 2, we go into intuitive intelligence, strategic intelligence, and year 3 we go into systemic intelligence and impact and influence, and we really create conscious leaders one at a time. But then I also realized that 3 years was a big commitment for people, and some people needed like change now. So I created Align, which is a program for people in transition, personal or professional, and that's 8 weeks. And then I created a program for Gen Z, because I had so many clients telling me about how do we deal with that generation, be it our own children who have been, that generation throughout the pandemic has suffered a lot, but also how do we manage them in organizations, because the way they think, the way they work is completely different. So we have a 6-week program for that generation. And we also have a 21-day meditation program. And I also do retreats, that are really about consciousness rather than leadership. But most recently, I would say over the last 2 years, I created a new product that is not on the website yet because we are soft launching it. That's called the Conscious Library. And this was really with the willingness to serve all employees within an organization, because, I've coached a lot of leaders and I've observed that in organization, the C-level people most of the time get one-on-one coaching, which is effective, transformative, but also expensive. Then we have the middle managers, where we don't really want to spend the money for one-on-one coaching, but yet we know that there is a need. So, most organizations, they struggle, they play with programs here and there, but they're not really suited. And then for the rest of the organization, there is not much, right? There might be a meditation class every month. But I was like, with my research on how to transform a culture, I really saw that we need to act at every level within an organization. Because if you want to change a culture, of course, you need the buy-in of the leaders. They need to do the work, they need to incarnate the new culture. But also, we need ambassadors. We need people who are going to demonstrate that change at every level. And then we can we create different language, different conversations. And that, has a snowball effect. So I was really convinced that we needed that. And, as I was working with organization, I really saw that because, I remember a company I did a workshop for all the employees. And I've been operating with them quite a bit. So everybody knew me quite well. And one day there was a receptionist who was 50 and, he came to me after the workshop and he said, Marika, I love it. I don't understand everything, but I've learned so much and I've understood so much about myself. And really that was touching because I realized that, everybody wants to become a better human. I mean, at least we need to be able to identify those who want. And when I was, as a manager, as an entrepreneur, one of my biggest challenge is how do I see the people who want to grow? How do I discern them and how do I support them? And by having that product for all employees, it's really a tool to do so. And of course, it's a response to a lot of organizational issues, such as how to attract talent, how to retain talent, how to unlock the power of inclusion, because diversity without inclusion is dangerous. How to work with all these, new topics such as CSR and ESG, and how to really incarnate that, because of course there is a lot of impact washing, and we see a lot of organizations just ticking the box, but is this really implemented? So that product is really an online tool that is self-directed, that is also really structured in a way that it has different levels from where you are in your leadership role or in your consciousness. And it really gives answers to questions such as how do I improve my confidence? How do I navigate difficult conversations? How do I improve my resilience? How do I prepare for public speaking? But also some deeper questions such as, how do I forgive? So, it's a tool where you can really work on yourself. And as an organization, you're supporting the growth of your employees, but that growth is going to have a butterfly effect in who they are, in their social life, in their families. So, it really retains and attracts people because your company is helping you to become a better person. So it's a gift as an organization.
That's wonderful. What a great program. I mean, because the only way to make cultural changes within an organization, well, globally, everywhere, right? But within an organization, for example, is to touch everyone. And depending on the number of people that is, and the reliance on those who go before you, right? So bringing it down could take a very long time. And probably somewhere falls off, right?
Exactly.
Well, and what I love is I can tell you're practicing what you believe and what you teach, because even though you mentioned all of those different programs and interventions, it was very well integrated from the same core. You can see the work of you seeing something out here and not running there to address that, but integrating it and bringing it into the core. And that creates cohesion over time. So they aren't really different programs. It's just meeting people where they are and doing what you can with the time. Obviously, you can't do in 6 weeks what you do in 3 years, but it's the same. It's the integration that I really love about your description.
Thank you. And it really also shows that what really I'm using is the technology of consciousness, and that technology can be used on many dimensions, and so it's the same technology that is just tailor-made for specific individuals or specific situations, but ultimately it's the same technology, which is the power of our conscious library in a way, because it really shows that ultimately we are all going in the same direction. with the same tools and the same language that is being bridged to us in the way that we can receive it, depending on who we are and where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ruminating on two words I'm not used to hearing together, which is technology and consciousness. On the one level, I totally was with you, and another, I couldn't get past that. Say a little bit more. What do you mean by the technology of consciousness?
Yeah. So who are we as human beings, right? We are creators. And the more we understand that process of creation, the more we are mastering the technology of creation. So consciousness is really a technology to create. And, we create with our thoughts, we create with our words, we create with our emotions. And the more we are able to master our thoughts, master our words, master our emotions, the more we are actually being masters in that technology. Right. And we can talk about neuroscience, we can talk about quantic science or quantum physics. But this is really that, right? If I am thinking something, saying something else, and acting in a different way, first, I'm unaligned. Second, I am unhealthy and I am quite difficult to work with. But also, I'm just sending mixed signals with my quantum field, right? We are co-creating with the quantum energy, and this has been proven scientifically, and recently even more. But so it's that process of actually understanding the process of creation and using it to the fullest of our abilities.
So the technology is going to run whether we want it to run or not, but through awareness, we can direct it and create more of what we intend to create.
Exactly.
And align.
Because exactly, when we are unconscious, that technology is working through us. But you see, I mean, I have a lot of clients that have come to me and said, I have a lot of drama, I have a lot of chaos in my life, and I'm getting to a place where it's exhausting. And some even admit that they used to enjoy it at some point, but they don't anymore, right? And so we're like, okay, who in you, what in you is creating the drama?
What's the technology behind it? I got it.
Exactly.
I now
Not that
made
it's
the
an
connection.
outside
Thank you
force.
for your
It's
patience.
an inside force. We think
both,
it's an
right?
outside
The
force.
Inside,
but we're responding.
when actually,
we're
because also, if I go a bit deeper in collective change, the system we live in is a system that is disempowering us from our creative power. Really, with who we are, we have much more power than we think. And so it's taking back that power to actually be fully aligned with the creation that we want to see coming in the world, and see that actually it does happen quicker or better or smoother when we work on our alignment first. Which is why it's important to know how to be aligned and to take the time to align ourselves. And that dimension of intuitive intelligence is crucial as well, because we have to make so many decisions these days that if we just stay in our mind, it's exhausting. But if we start to awaken that intuitive intelligence within us, then we are able to feel our way into decisions and we are much more efficient. But to be able to access our intuition, we have to be able to discern what is intuition and what is ego. In other words, what is a reaction and what is a hint, right? And if we are unconscious and running on autopilot, we can't make that difference because we don't know.
Yeah. I can see why it's a 3-year mentorship program, right? There's a lot of deprogramming and reprogramming and like so many things are just
examine.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to understand your patterns, you have to understand where they come from. You need to start deprogramming and reprogramming your brain. In neuroscience, we know that a pattern is created by a repetitive process between two neurons, right? So if we want to change a pattern, we have to stop taking the same route and we have to create another route. That takes time and practice. Then there is emotional intelligence. We have to release our emotional baggage, which we all have, We have to, look at our emotional wounds and heal them. We have to understand our emotional triggers so that we release all of that and we can get to a place of emotional neutrality. So yeah, there is a bit of work.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And
Oh my gosh, so insightful.
we're going to direct people to your website. Any other things you want to call attention to that we can put in the show notes so they can connect with you?
Yeah. So just before we go, I think there is something I want to add, which is looking at organizations from a place of performance, because, conscious leadership also brings more performance. And I think it's important for people to see that. I say very often, we've been used for decades and centuries to look at organizations with 2 or 3 dimensions. One dimension being, gaining market share in order to increase revenue. Another one is to reduce costs to increase profits. Sometimes, for I would say that the more elevated organization, there is also an emphasis on client satisfaction, because people understand that client satisfaction is going to support both revenue and profits. But now there is a new lever in a way, which is employee satisfaction, which actually has been seen a lot in certain industries where there is a lot of service, right? So hospitality and hotels, for instance, like, Marriott or Hilton groups, they've understood that for a long time. They know that if their employees are satisfied, they will take care better of their clients, and they will have the humanity within them to care for their clients. And now really we have the opportunity to tap into that 4th levers that hasn't really been used so far, where employee satisfaction is going to bring more engagement, more innovation, more, really more revenue and more profit. And again, there is some data there. Some people say that ego costs organization between 6 and 12% of their revenue. And it's the hidden line, it's the hidden cost in the profit and loss. So it's not just a philosophy, it has tangible results.
There's a business case. So fulfillment is a good thing, but fulfillment also is a profitable thing because it affects turnover, it affects recruitment, it affects all of the things you mentioned.
Everything works better.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's important to underline that, so that, it's a grounded message, and people really see that there is some real tangible, advantage to that.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to add.
It's not out there somewhere. It's in
not
here.
just woo-woo for all of us to feel good.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've worked in finance for 14 years, so I like to measure, and I like to
find the bottom line, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So where to reach me, right?
Yes, go ahead.
So you can go on our website, consciousleadership.org, where we share actually a lot of complementary resources, from, a free masterclass, some free meditations, a digest that we send out every month, some podcasts. And you can also follow us on social media, on LinkedIn and Instagram, Marika Messager, where we share valuable content, inspiring content and stories regularly every week. So, you can connect with us this way. And again, I want to add that conscious leadership is, it's a business, it's a technology, it's a philosophy, but also it's a community. And it's also a movement. I'm not an activist, but I'm engaged. And, the more people join us in that community, the more we can really advocate what is conscious leadership and show people what good can be done with it.
Thank you so much. And we'll make sure to have all of those links in the show notes. It's a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for making space for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Marika.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Beyond podcast. We hope you benefited from this conversation as much as we have. We invite you to join our community of conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to sign up at aleadershipbeyond.com for free materials and updates. That's aleadershipbeyond.com. Join us in 2 weeks for our next episode.